Little girl gave her pancake to lonely woman at cafe, not knowing she was her dad's blind date. Before we continue, tell us where in the world you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories travel. Nora Simmons sat in the back corner booth of Rosie's Diner at 6 in the morning, watching the sun come up over the parking lot where her Toyota Camry was parked with everything she owned stuffed in the back seat. And honestly, she was trying to figure out how her life had gone so completely sideways in just 8 weeks that she was now officially homeless, broke, and about to go on a blind date while pretending she had her crap together. Her laptop was open in front of her with 3 different freelance projects going at once, because that's what you did when you lost your apartment and your dignity. You worked from diners and pretended the waitress didn't know you'd been nursing the same cup of coffee for 2 hours because you couldn't afford to order actual food. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister Angela, and Nora already knew what it was going to say before she even looked. "Don't you dare bail on this date. His name is Marcus. He's a single dad. He's nice, and you need this." Nora wanted to throw her phone across the diner because what she actually needed was a place to sleep that wasn't her front seat and maybe some groceries that didn't come from a gas station. But sure, a blind date with some random guy at 9 in the morning was definitely going to solve all her problems. She typed back, "I'll be here," and felt like the world's biggest fraud because how was she supposed to sit across from someone and make small talk when she'd been showering at Planet Fitness for 3 weeks and her last real meal had been yesterday's free samples at Costco? Across town, Carter Hayes was standing in his daughter's bedroom, watching her stare at the ceiling like she'd been doing every morning for the past 14 months. And he was running out of ways to pretend that everything was going to be okay when his 7-year-old hadn't spoken a single word since the day they buried her mother. "Morning, Lilybug," he said in that cheerful voice that felt more and more like a lie every time he used it. "Saturday pancakes at Rosie's, just like always. You ready?" Lily sat up and nodded without making eye contact, grabbed her notebook and pencil that went everywhere with her now, because that's how she talked these days. Written notes and head shakes and drawings that broke Carter's heart every single time. His phone was blowing up with texts from his sister Monica, who'd apparently decided that 14 months of widowhood was long enough and Carter needed to get back out there, whatever the hell that meant. And she'd set him up on some blind date this morning at Rosie's Diner, which was either brilliant or the worst idea in human history, because that was their spot, his and Lily's, their Saturday morning tradition. He'd already typed out 5 different excuses to cancel, everything from food poisoning to spontaneous combustion, but Monica knew all his moves, and her last text just said, "You promised, her name is Elena, 9 a.m. Don't make me drive over there and physically drag you through this." They walked into Rosie's at 7, and the smell of coffee and bacon hit Carter like it always did. This weird mix of comfort and sadness because Sarah had loved this place, had spent 1,000 Saturday mornings in these exact booths making Lily laugh over chocolate chip pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse. Beth, the owner, spotted them immediately, and her face did that thing where she smiled, but her eyes were sad because everyone in this town knew what happened to Sarah, and everyone looked at Carter and Lily like they were these fragile, broken things that might shatter if you breathed on them wrong. "Your usual table, honey?" Beth signed the words while she spoke them out loud because she'd learned ASL when her grandson was born. Def and Sarah had loved that about her, had loved that this diner made everyone feel seen. Carter nodded, and Lily shuffled to their booth by the window, the one with the view of the parking lot and the oak tree that turned red every fall. Beth brought chocolate chip pancakes without Carter having to order, because she knew, everyone knew, and she set them in front of Lily with extra whipped cream and that smile that was trying so hard to make things normal. Lily stared at the pancakes like they were some kind of impossible puzzle, and Carter felt his chest get tight because she used to demolish these things. Used to eat them so fast she'd get whipped cream on her nose, and now she just pushed them around her plate until they got cold, and he pretended not to notice. He pulled out his phone to text Monica another excuse, and that's when he saw her, this woman in the corner booth who looked like she was trying to disappear into the vinyl seat. And there was something about the way she was crying while staring at her laptop that made Carter's stomach hurt with recognition, because he knew that look, that specific brand of trying to fall apart quietly so nobody noticed. Lily saw her too, and Carter watched his daughter's head turn toward the crying woman and stay there. And he knew that look, that was Lily's fixing people look. The one she used to get before Sarah died, when she'd bring home every stray cat and sad kid on the playground. Lily slid out of the booth before Carter could stop her, and he was halfway through saying, "Lily, no, come back," when she walked right up to the stranger's table, carrying her entire plate of untouched pancakes like some kind of 7-year-old pancake delivery service. The woman looked up, and her eyes were red and exhausted, and Lily just stood there holding out the plate. And then she did something that made Carter's heart literally stop beating in his chest. She pulled out her notebook and wrote in her careful second-grade handwriting, "You're sadder than me. Pancakes help. Mommy said so before heaven," and slid it across the table. And the woman read it and just completely broke down. These big shoulder-shaking sobs that made other people in the diner turn and look. But then Lily did something she hadn't done in 427 days. Carter knew because he'd been counting every single one. She opened her mouth and words came out. Actual spoken words in that small, clear voice he thought he'd never hear again. "Don't cry alone. Crying alone is the worst." And Carter was out of his booth and across that diner so fast he almost knocked over a waitress because his daughter was talking. His silent, grief-stuck daughter was speaking to a complete stranger about loneliness. And he got to the table just in time to see the woman grab Lily's hand like it was a lifeline. "I'm so sorry," Carter said, and his voice came out all wrong, too loud and too shaky. "She doesn't usually, I mean, she hasn't talked in over a year. I don't know what. Are you okay?" The woman looked up at him, and he saw her really see him for the first time, saw her taking in his expression, which was probably somewhere between shocked and about to cry. And she said, "She just gave me her pancakes and spoke to me. She's the most incredible kid I've ever met." And something in the way she said it, like she meant every word, like Lily had just performed an actual miracle, made Carter's throat get so tight he could barely breathe. "Can we sit?" he heard himself ask, and the woman nodded and scooted over, and Lily climbed right into that booth next to this stranger, like they'd been friends forever, and Carter slid in across from them, feeling like reality had just shifted sideways. "I'm Carter, this is Lily, and I'm really sorry if we're intruding, but you just got my daughter to speak for the first time since her mom died, and I kind of need to process that for a second." The woman wiped her eyes and said, "I'm Nora, and please don't apologize. She just saved my entire morning, maybe my entire life. I don't even know." They talked for 2 hours, and Carter ordered more food, noticed that Nora only picked at the toast until he insisted she eat the eggs and bacon too. Noticed she looked thin in that way that said she hadn't been eating enough for a while. Lily was talking in these short, careful sentences, telling Nora about her mom and heaven, and how sometimes sad feelings got so big they took up all the room for words. And Nora listened like it was the most important conversation she'd ever had. "Where do you live?" Lily asked. And Carter saw something flash across Nora's face, something like panic, before she said carefully, "I'm between places right now." Carter's phone alarm went off at 8:45, and he remembered with this sinking feeling that he had a blind date in 15 minutes. And he looked at Nora and Lily sitting together sharing pancakes, and the absolute last thing he wanted to do was end this moment for some awkward setup his sister had forced on him. "I actually have to meet someone at 9, he said, and watched Nora's face do something complicated. "That's funny, so do I, here actually. Blind date thing my sister set up." And they both just started laughing because what were the actual odds? And Carter felt this weird hope that maybe his date wouldn't show up and he could just stay here in this booth with this woman who'd somehow brought his daughter back to life. 9 o'clock came and went, and both their phones buzzed at the same time. Carter's said, "Family emergency, can we do 10 instead?" And Nora said, "Work crisis, 10 a.m. okay?" And they looked at each other, and Carter saw his own relief reflected in her face. "My date postponed," they both said at exactly the same time. And Lily laughed, actually laughed out loud, and Carter felt like he was watching his daughter come back from somewhere far away. They stayed in that booth talking, and Lily eventually fell asleep with her head on Nora's shoulder. And Carter looked at this woman holding his kid and thought, This is what peace feels like. I almost forgot. 10 o'clock and both phones buzzed again. Can't make it, family stuff, so sorry. And boss needs me, have to cancel. Really sorry. And Carter and Nora read their messages, and he saw something like disappointment cross her face before she smiled. Well, my date bailed completely. Guess it wasn't meant to be. Carter grinned. Mine too, but honestly, I'm kind of relieved because this has been the best morning I've had in over a year. And then he did something crazy, something the old Carter would never have done. Want to spend the day with us? No pressure. Just Lily and me usually hit the park and the bookstore, and she clearly loves you. Nora's eyes filled with tears and she nodded, and they left Rosie's diner together with Lily holding both their hands, and Carter looked down at his daughter's face and saw something he thought was gone forever. She was smiling. They spent the entire day together, and Carter kept waiting for it to feel weird or forced, but it never did. It just felt right in this way that kind of terrified him, because he'd known this woman for all of 5 hours, and his daughter was holding her hand in the park like Nora had been there forever. Lily was talking nonstop, actual full sentences about the ducks and the swings and how the leaves look like fire. And Carter had to keep blinking back tears because he'd forgotten what his daughter's voice sounded like when she was happy. They hit the bookstore on Main Street, and Nora showed Lily the art section, pulled out books on watercolors and sketching. And Lily actually engaged, actually pointed at pictures and said, I want to try that, in this small, excited voice that made Carter want to buy every art supply in the entire store. You're really good with her, Carter said while Lily was picking out colored pencils, 3 aisles over, and Nora shrugged like it was nothing but her eyes were wet. She's easy to be good with. She's got this old soul thing going on. You can tell she feels everything really deeply. And Carter nodded, because that was exactly it. That was Lily in a sentence. And the fact that this stranger could see it after one day, when most people just saw the quiet broken kid, made his chest do this painful squeezing thing. They got ice cream even though it was barely noon, and Lily ate the whole thing, didn't leave a single bite, and Carter almost took a picture because it felt like documenting a miracle. 5 o'clock rolled around, and Carter realized he should probably offer to drive Nora home, except he didn't want this day to end. Didn't want to go back to his empty house where Lily would retreat into silence, and he'd spend another night pretending he was fine. Let me give you a ride home, he said, trying to sound casual, and he watched Nora's whole body go tense. Oh, that's okay. I can grab an Uber. You've done enough already. But Lily grabbed Nora's hand and said, please come see our house. I want to show you my room. And there was no way Nora could say no to that face. Nobody could. They drove through town and Carter kept asking for directions, and Nora kept giving these vague answers like, oh, just head toward downtown, and anywhere around here is fine. And alarm bells started going off in his head because this didn't feel right. He pulled into a Starbucks parking lot and turned to look at her. Nora, where do you actually live? And he watched her face just crumble, watched her try to hold it together and fail. And she pointed across the parking lot to a beat-up Toyota Camry with blankets visible in the back window. There, she said, and her voice cracked. I live there, in my car, have been for 3 weeks now. And Carter felt like someone had punched him in the stomach because this woman who'd spent all day making his daughter smile had nowhere to go, was sleeping in a parking lot, and she'd been too proud or too scared to say anything. What happened? He asked. And Nora told him everything. The layoff from her marketing job 8 weeks ago, burning through her savings trying to find work, the eviction notice, how she'd been doing freelance graphic design from coffee shops and charging her laptop at the library and showering at the 24-hour gym on 5th Street. I shouldn't have spent the whole day with you guys. I should have been working. I just couldn't make myself say no when Lily asked, and now I've wasted your time with my mess. Nora was talking fast like she was trying to get it all out before Carter could interrupt, and Lily had climbed into the front seat and wrapped her arms around Nora's neck from behind. You're not a mess, Lily said, and her voice was fierce. You're my friend, and friends help each other, and Daddy has an extra room, and you should stay with us. Carter looked at his daughter and saw Sarah in her face. That same stubborn kindness that didn't take no for an answer. Lily's right, Carter said, and Nora was already shaking her head before he finished. We have a guest room, it's just sitting there empty. You'd actually be doing us a favor because Lily clearly needs you. And honestly, so do I. Nora was crying again. I can't just move in with strangers. That's insane. We met this morning over pancakes. And Carter said, then don't think of it as moving in. Think of it as crashing with friends until you get back on your feet, a week or two max, just until your freelance money comes through. He could see her wavering, could see pride fighting with desperation, and he pushed a little harder. Please, you gave me my daughter's voice back. Let me give you a safe place to sleep. Nora agreed to 1 week and ended up staying for 3, and Carter watched his house turn into a home again in ways he didn't know he'd been missing. She worked during the day while Lily was at school, took over a corner of the dining room with her laptop and design projects, and she insisted on cooking dinner every night as payment, even though Carter told her 100 times she didn't owe them anything. Lily followed her around like a shadow, helped with dishes, sat next to her during movies, asked her opinions on homework and outfit choices, and whether purple was a better color than blue. Carter was falling in love, and he knew it, and it scared him to death because what if he screwed this up? What if Nora left and Lily lost another person she loved? What if he was moving too fast and reading signals that weren't there? They'd stay up talking after Lily went to bed, sitting on opposite ends of the couch with coffee mugs and conversations that went everywhere. And one night around midnight, Nora said, "Thank you for this, for seeing me as more than just some charity case." And Carter moved closer without thinking about it. You're not a charity case. You're the person who saved my kid and made me remember what it feels like to want something again. He was looking at her mouth and she was looking at his, and the space between them got smaller. And then Carter's brain kicked in with all the reasons this was a terrible idea. He pulled back so fast he almost spilled his coffee. I can't mess this up. Lily needs you. If I kiss you and it goes wrong, you'll leave and I can't do that to her. Nora's face did something complicated, hurt and understanding mixed together. I'm not going anywhere, Carter. Not unless you want me to. Week 3 and Lily came home with a permission slip for the school talent show. Said she wanted to sing in front of everyone. And Carter almost fell over because Lily used to sing all the time before Sarah died. Used to belt out Disney songs in the shower and make up lyrics in the car. And then silence had swallowed all of that. What are you going to sing, baby? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady. And Lily said, You are my sunshine. The one Mommy used to do, but only if Nora comes to watch. And Nora promised, cross her heart, wouldn't miss it for anything in the world. Talent show night, and Carter sat in those tiny elementary school chairs with his phone recording while Lily walked on stage in the yellow dress Nora had helped her pick out, and she looked so small under those lights. The music started and Lily found Nora in the crowd, locked eyes with her, and started singing in this clear, sweet voice that sounded so much like Sarah's, it made Carter's throat close up. She got through the whole song without stopping, hit the last note, and said into the microphone, I dedicate this to my friend Nora, who taught me it's okay to use my voice again, even when you're scared. The auditorium erupted, and Carter was crying, and Nora was crying, and Lily ran off that stage straight into Nora's arms, and they stood in the parking lot afterward, and Carter just went for it, pulled Nora close and kissed her like he'd been wanting to for 3 weeks straight. I'm in love with you, he said against her mouth. I know it's fast and probably crazy, but I don't care. I'm completely in love with you. And Nora kissed him back and whispered, I've been in love with you since the pancakes. I was just waiting for you to catch up. They drove home in this bubble of happiness, Lily singing in the back seat, Carter holding Nora's hand across the console, and everything felt perfect until they walked in the door, and Carter's phone buzzed with a Facebook message from someone named Elena Wright. I'm so sorry about canceling our blind date twice. Family emergency and work crisis finally resolved. Can we try again? I'd really love to meet you. There was a profile picture, and Carter's entire world tilted sideways because it was Nora. It was definitely Nora, and his brain started putting pieces together that didn't make any sense. He opened the dating app his sister had used to set him up, the one where he'd created a profile under his middle name Marcus because he'd wanted privacy, and he searched for Elena, and there she was, Nora's face with the name Elena Richardson, and the messages matched up perfectly with the morning they met. They were each other's blind date, had been the whole time, and she'd never said a word. Carter felt something cold slide through his chest because this meant Nora had known, had to have known, and everything that happened after was what? Some kind of long game to get in his house? Get close to his kid? You knew, he said, and his voice came out flat and dangerous. Nora looked up from helping Lily with her shoes. Knew what? Carter showed her his phone, watched confusion cross her face, and then shock, and then understanding. Oh my God, you're Marcus. I'm Elena. We were... Wait, you think I knew? And Carter wanted to believe the surprise in her voice, but the evidence was right there. You moved into my house, got close to my daughter, and this whole time you knew exactly who I was. Nora's face went white. I used my middle name online. I never saw your profile picture clearly, Carter. I swear I had no idea. How convenient, Carter said, and he knew he was being cruel, but he couldn't stop, couldn't get past the feeling of being played. Homeless woman sees single dad with a house and a soft heart, sees an opportunity, uses his kid to get in the door. And Nora looked like he'd slapped her. You think I'd use Lily? You actually think I would manipulate a child? Her voice was shaking. I love her. I love both of you. This wasn't some setup. But Carter was too far gone, too scared, too convinced that good things didn't happen to him without strings attached. I need you to leave, he said. Tonight, now. I can't have you here. And he watched Nora pack her stuff in garbage bags because she didn't have suitcases, watched her walk out to her car, and Lily woke up from the noise and saw Nora leaving and screamed, No, you promised. And just like that, his daughter stopped talking again, and Carter stood in his empty house and wondered if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. 2 weeks went by, and Carter felt like he was living in some kind of personal hell where everything reminded him of Nora. The coffee mug she used, the spot on the couch where she'd sit with her laptop, the way Lily's door stayed closed now because his daughter wouldn't come out except for school, and even then she moved through the house like a ghost. Lily wasn't talking again, and this time it was worse because Carter knew exactly who to blame, could see it in the mirror every morning, and his sister Monica showed up on day 15 and didn't even bother knocking before she barged in and tore into him. You're a complete idiot, Monica said, standing in his living room with her hands on her hips looking exactly like their mother used to when Carter had screwed something up as a kid. That woman didn't know. I set up that date. I used your middle name Marcus and her middle name Elena on purpose to keep it anonymous, so you wouldn't Google stalk each other before meeting. This whole thing is literally my fault, and you destroyed the best thing that happened to you and Lily because you're too scared to believe good things can happen. And Carter tried to argue, but Monica wasn't having it. Just kept going. I've talked to Nora 3 times since you kicked her out. She's devastated. She's back to sleeping in her car, even though she finally has enough money for an apartment deposit. And you want to know why she hasn't gotten a place yet? Because she's been parking outside Lily's school every day just to make sure she's okay. Carter felt like the floor had dropped out from under him because Nora was still looking out for Lily, even after he'd accused her of the worst possible things, even after he'd thrown her out. And he pulled up the dating app and really looked at the profiles this time. His picture was from 5 years ago before Sarah got sick. Some group shot where his face was partially cut off, and he listed himself as Marcus C. from the South Side. Nora's profile used Elena R., and her picture was artsy and black and white, taken from an angle, and he realized with this sinking, horrible feeling that they really could have missed it, could have been messaging as Marcus and Elena while falling for each other as Carter and Nora. He grabbed his keys and Monica said, "About damn time," and he drove to every parking lot he could think of. The Walmart where people let you sleep overnight, the 24-hour grocery store on Patterson, the rest stop off Highway 47. Found her car at 11 at night in the far corner of a Planet Fitness lot, and she was in the driver's seat with her laptop balanced on the steering wheel, working on some design project. And Carter's heart just shattered because she was right back where she'd started, and it was completely his fault. He knocked on her window and watched her jump, saw her face go from startled to guarded when she recognized him, and she rolled the window down exactly 2 inches. "What do you want, Carter?" Her voice was flat and exhausted, and he deserved that. Deserved way worse than that, actually. "I'm sorry, I was wrong. I was scared, and I sabotaged the best thing in my life because some part of me still doesn't believe I'm allowed to be happy after Sarah. He was talking fast, words tumbling over each other. Monica told me about the profile names, and I checked everything, and you couldn't have known, and I accused you of using my daughter when you've done nothing but love her. Nora's eyes were hard in a way he'd never seen before. You didn't just accuse me, Carter. You made me feel like I was some kind of con artist, like everything we built was fake, and then you threw me out and took away the only family I've had in years. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. I get that you're scared. I get that losing Sarah destroyed you. But I needed you to believe in me, and you chose not to. And that's not something I can just get over because you finally checked the facts. Carter was crying now, didn't even care that he was standing in a parking lot at 11 at night falling apart. You're right, I failed you, I failed us, but I'm here now and I'm begging you to give me another chance because I love you and Lily loves you, and we're both miserable without you. Nora shook her head. Lily stopped talking again, didn't she? And Carter nodded because of course she knew. Of course she'd figured it out. She won't come out of her room, won't eat, just draws these pictures of the three of us, and then scribbles them out. I can't fix you, Carter, Nora said quietly. I can't be the person who makes you believe you deserve good things. You have to figure that out yourself. And she started rolling up her window, but Carter saw movement in his rearview mirror, turned and saw his sister's car, and Lily was climbing out of the back seat in her pajamas because apparently Monica had followed him and brought reinforcements. Lily walked up to Nora's car with that purple notebook clutched in her hands, the one she'd been using to communicate for over a year, and she held it up to the window so Nora could read it. The letters were big and shaky like Lily had been crying while she wrote. You promised you weren't going anywhere. I'm holding you to Pancake promises. Please come home. And Nora's face just crumpled, all that armor she'd put up dissolving, and she opened the car door and got out and knelt down to Lily's level. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Your dad asked me to leave, and I had to go. But Lily shook her head and spoke out loud for the first time in 2 weeks. Daddy makes mistakes. He made a really big one this time. But he loves you, and I love you. And you said you weren't going anywhere, so you have to stay. And then she pulled out another piece of paper from her notebook, this one with a drawing of the three of them holding hands under a rainbow. And across the top it said, My real family, in Lily's careful printing. Carter dropped to his knees next to them. Move in with us, not as a guest this time, as family, as my partner, as Lily's person, whatever you want to call it, just please come home. Nora looked between them, this man and this little girl who'd found her on the worst morning of her life and turned everything around. What if you get scared again? What if something happens and you push me away? Carter took her hands. Then you call me on it, you fight for us, you don't let me self-destruct, and I promise to do the work, real therapy, dealing with Sarah's death properly instead of just surviving it. Nora was quiet for a long time, and then she said, I need to hear you say it. Say that you believe I didn't know, that you trust me. And Carter looked her dead in the eyes. I believe you, I trust you, and I'm sorry I didn't say that. 2 weeks ago, I'm sorry I let fear turn me into someone who could hurt you like that. Lily grabbed both their hands. Does this mean you're coming home? Because I really miss having you braid my hair, and you're way better at making grilled cheese than Daddy is. Nora laughed through her tears and nodded, and Lily threw her arms around her neck, and Carter wrapped his arms around both of them, and Monica was crying in her car, watching the whole thing. They drove back to the house together, Nora following in her car with all her stuff still in garbage bags. And this time, when she walked through the door, it felt different, felt permanent, felt like coming home instead of just finding shelter. 1 year later, they were back at Rosie's Diner on a Saturday morning. Same booth by the window, except this time Nora had a ring on her finger and Lily had a little sister on the way. And they just finished telling Beth about their new nonprofit called Pancake Promise that helped homeless families get back on their feet. Every family we work with gets their first real meal here, Carter explained. With pancakes, obviously, because that's where everything started. And Beth was crying happy tears saying she'd donate breakfast for every single family, wouldn't charge them a dime. Lily was working on her pancakes when she spotted a woman sitting alone in the corner booth, crying into her phone, and without hesitation, she grabbed her plate and walked over. "Excuse me, you look really sad and lonely, and pancakes help with that. Want to share?" The woman looked up shocked, and Lily smiled. "Also, my family's right over there, and we have room at our table if you want to sit with people instead of being alone, because crying alone is the worst. Trust me, I know." The woman started crying harder and nodded, and Lily brought her back to their booth, and Nora scooted over to make room while Carter grabbed another chair. They didn't ask what was wrong, just included her in the conversation, made her feel seen, and by the time breakfast was over, the woman had told them her name was Rebecca, and she'd just left an abusive relationship and had nowhere to go. Nora pulled out a pancake promise card. "We help families transition out of homelessness. It's what we do, and we'd love to help you if you're interested." Rebecca took the card with shaking hands, and Lily patted her arm. "It's going to be okay, I promise. These guys saved my friend Nora when she was living in her car, and now she's going to be my stepmom, and we save other people. It's kind of our thing." And Carter looked at Nora across the table, saw her eyes shining with happy tears, and reached over to squeeze her hand. Beth brought over fresh coffee and signed while she talked. "You three started something special. Sarah would be so proud." And Carter nodded because it was true. Sarah would have loved this, would have loved Nora, would have wanted exactly this kind of second chapter for her family. Lily held up her orange juice. "To pancake promises and helping sad people and families that choose each other." And they all clinked glasses, Rebecca included, and Nora added, "To second chances and little girls who see what adults miss." Sometimes the worst mornings turn into the best beginnings. Sometimes a little girl sharing her pancakes is actually the universe saying, "Pay attention. This matters. This person matters." Sometimes the dates that never happen are better than the ones that do. And sometimes broken people find each other at exactly the right moment and build something beautiful out of the pieces. If this story reminded you that kindness changes everything, that kids understand love better than adults, that homeless doesn't mean hopeless, and that second chances are real if you're brave enough to take them, hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone who needs to remember their story isn't over. Thanks for being here with us. And remember, never underestimate the power of sharing your pancakes with someone who needs them.